Hello, my name is Connor Tobin and I'm with the Twin Cities Soccer Referees Organization. We've teamed up with the Minnesota State High School League to help educate soccer officials across the state. I became a high school referee in 2012 and I also referee USSF and college soccer. In 2023, I obtained my USSF referee coach license. For our first and hopefully ongoing series of reviews, we're going to be taking a look at bench decorum. The idea behind these reviews is to establish uniformity amongst officials across the state, to provide access to educational opportunities to referees, and to improve our skills as officials so that players have safe and fun games. We're going to be taking a look at a situation that was encountered this fall already, and we're also going to be taking a look at some other examples of bench misconduct. We're going to be considering something here that ties together all four of the MSHSL points of emphasis for this year, including education-based athletics, bench decorum, courage, consistency, and character, as well as uniform and equipment. And we're going to be taking a look at some examples of bench misconduct that must be addressed by the officials. Now, when we talk about bench decorum, we're referring to the behavior of the bench, including the coaches, the players, and the staff. Bench decorum means managing and working with players and coaches until that behavior crosses a line, at which point we need to deal with it. We, as officials, need to be professional, and sometimes it is helpful to put ourselves into the shoes of the players, of the coaches, of the other staff that may be around. Keep in mind here, too, that soccer is a game of information. We're always looking for information, clues from players, clues from coaches, and it's certainly possible that that information may be coming from the bench. There might be coaches or even assistant coaches who have information for us that we should take advantage of. The goal of the One Voice policy is to reduce problematic and disrespectful behavior and improve bench decorum. We're trying to curb dissent and make sure that the examples that people are setting, particularly the assistant coaches, is appropriate. The One Voice policy should be enforced for dissent. It is not a blanket prohibition on having any communications with assistant coaches or with the bench in general. It doesn't stop us from talking to the benches, from having communications and conversations that may prove helpful down the road. And officials are allowed to talk with the assistant coaches. Certainly if it's respectful and there's information to be gained, that can be something that's very helpful and ultimately pays dividends down the road. Seek out opportunities where you can. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth as the referee. It's possible as coaches have that information for you. They have something useful for you. And also, any positive interactions that we can have with the coaching staff, whether it's the assistants, the head coach, are great. We never know when that interaction might be paying off later in the game. Make friends wherever you can. Take advantage of that. Those friendly opportunities might be paying dividends a lot later in the game, simply because you treated somebody with some decency and courtesy earlier in the game. Again, what we need to address is poor behavior. We can't have assistant referees screaming at players, chasing them down the field. This is where One Voice needs to be dealt with. If the head coach has something to say, you can address it with them, but we don't need and do not want to have the assistant coaches hassling the referees and dissenting, particularly when it's every call. Again, when it comes to dissent, remember a short outburst that's quick, confined, does not have to be addressed. You don't need to always go looking for trouble. But again, these things are fluid. You need to think about it as it's happening, but don't necessarily look for it when it's not there. We're going to consider first here a scenario that we have, and again, this is not necessarily exactly what happened in this game, but for purposes of our discussion, these are the facts that we want to take a look at. In this case, a player with earrings was instructed to leave the field. The player returned to the field with tape over his earrings that was plainly visible to everybody, probably from the next county over. The assistant coach calmly and politely told AR1, which is the bench side AR, that the opponent still had the earrings in, that they had been taped over. Our question then in this scenario is, how should that assistant referee respond to the assistant coach who has given him this information? We'll take a quick peek here. You can see this is what the player's earrings look like. They're quite visible. The white masking the face makes the one on the right a little bit harder to see, but you can still see the earring pretty plainly visible even at a distance. So as we're looking at these, keep in mind that if that's visible to the assistant coach, if that's visible to the players, we all can assume that this is also visible to the spectators, obviously to the other players as well. As I mentioned at the outset, this is a good scenario for us to consider because it hits all four of the points of emphasis. First, this hits the education-based athletics. What lesson are we teaching the student athletes with our response? Can two people calmly address this? This also was mentioned, I believe, in one of our preseason modules as well. Something to consider. What are we teaching by how we interact with this? Again, bench decorum, it's obvious here. We're talking about the one voice policy. This also, though, goes to our character. What are we presenting? How are we coming across as professional? And what do we want to say with our actions? And then finally, this also addresses the uniform issue here. And obviously, I think a lot of our focus this year has been on these tiny, ridiculous little shin guards that people are wearing, that some of the players are wearing, and we need to clean that up. But this goes overall to, how are we enforcing something like shin guards if we're not taking care of problems like earrings that are incredibly obvious to everybody? This is one where perception does dictate reality. If we are having the courage to step up and be good with our character, but also to enforce something that's clear, we're letting everybody know that we have this under control. And that's an important piece for us to consider as well, is that how we appear to everybody here is very, very important. That, again, gives you a lot of credibility. If you're not taking care of the earrings, then it's one of those where if you have a close offside decision, you have a subjective foul decision, you may not get the benefit of the doubt that you otherwise would if they think you're acting professionally with everything else. And again, Rule 4 of the high school rules, and specifically Section 3, talks about illegal equipment. Jewelry is prohibited, and specifically Situation 4.3.2 provides an example indicating that where a player is wearing earrings, it is illegal. Why do we have this rule? And what is it that we are trying to deal with? The goal or the outcome for for such a rule? Well, it all comes down to keeping the players safe. It's the same reason we want to address the shin guards. It's the same reason we call fouls. At this level of the game, we want everybody to be safe. And well, the coach ultimately should have told us at the beginning that everybody's properly and legally equipped. Once the game is underway, that is ultimately our responsibility to deal with that. And as we know, the rules provide for cautions to the coach or coaches, depending on who it is and when exactly the timing is. But the point is, this cannot go unaddressed. So we need to deal with the equipment as well. Now, as we return back to, again, our very fact-specific scenario that we have in our scenario that we're reviewing, in this case, did the assistant coach act in some public or provocative way? In other words, was the assistant coach actually dissenting at any point? Was he really doing anything that required a card or anything that would be crossing the line? Also, as I mentioned earlier, we need to put ourselves into the shoes of the coaching staff and the players, get into their minds and see what they're thinking. Why is it in this case that the assistant coach might be saying something about the earrings here? Or this could also be another player. It could be whoever, somebody mentioning this. But why are they saying it? That's something to think about. here. And then is this something that is subjective or is it objective? Are we talking about a foul that may be on the line between a caution and a red card? Is it something that we have to evaluate? Was this player offside, or did somebody play the ball? No, this is something where ultimately either the player has the earring in or they don't. And this is an easy one. This isn't something we're, having some sort of argument about the underlying fact. Is there a safety concern? Yes, in a case like this, there is. That's probably why the coach is actually mentioning this. Now, of course, that isn't always why coaches mention things. But again, in our scenario, we're getting information here. And as I mentioned earlier, we are the ones who are responsible for enforcing this. So keep that in the back of your mind as we consider this further. In a case like this, we don't have the coach screaming about the earrings. We can take advantage of this opportunity. We've just been given great information by that coach. Now we can use it. In fact, this coach has actually bailed out the referee crew and said, hey, by the way, if you didn't notice it, that guy still got his earrings in which case really that guy is making the rest of the referee crew really look silly by not having addressed this. The coach has not said anything or done anything that's disrespectful. He's simply said, hey, just so you know, this is what's going on the field. If we ignore that information, what does that tell the spectators, the coaching staff, the players about what it is that we're doing? Are we taking our job seriously? Are we going to be on top of it and keep the players safe? As I mentioned, great opportunity to make friends here. This is when you can simply tell the coach, thank you, hey, we obviously missed that, or I haven't had a chance to tell the referee yet, but I'm going to get his attention. I will tell the referee we're going to address this. Even better, we've solved a problem very simply. We know what it is. This is now under control, and we're set to go. More importantly, in a scenario like this, the assistant coach is now the AR's friend, and the assistant coach, hopefully the coaching staff and the players have noticed that you've told the assistant coach you're taking the job seriously, and that might matter when it's 20 minutes later and you're making a controversial offside decision that perhaps isn't going their way. And that's a great thing, because at least now you've got some credibility with them, and you are going to hopefully catch a little bit less flack, and things are going to feel a little bit easier. But they're at least going to feel like they can trust you a bit more, simply because of working with them on a scenario that is good. It's a win for everybody. It's not a great time to assert the one voice policy. Again, there's not really any dissent here that has occurred. Again, it certainly could be a scenario where there is dissent, but not one that we are seeing here. A courteous, respectful conversation here is something that's extremely useful to the referee crew. So keep in mind the big picture as we're going forward and dealing with coaches. We can always start out being friendly and respectful. If we have to clamp down later, we can, but it never hurts to start in a friendly manner. Again, big picture, take advantage of the opportunities for positive interactions, address the situations with bad behavior, and enforce the one voice with assistant coach dissent. We must address bad behavior from the benches. It is something that will spread if it isn't taken care of by the officials. In our next, we've got 3 clips here that are going to show some examples of referees addressing bad behavior, and certainly behavior that simply has to be dealt with by the referee crew. For better or worse, we do not have any high school clips that show this sort of behavior from coaches, but listen carefully to what the coach is saying, think about why the coach is frustrated, and then also note how the referee is handling the coach and the assistant coach. We're going to be taking a look here at this Notre Dame versus Clemson match and how the referee addresses the coach as well as the assistant coach.
Gattino and Short both going for the ball. Disadvantage initially played. Mercado takes the shot. It is bobbled.
Well, you can see Mercado just at the end there saying that her shirt was pulled and it was by Hirschfeld. And that's something they should be aware of because she's already on a yellow card, Hirschfeld. That is the player that makes this team tick. Sitting in the midfield, allowing for them to move the ball around. If she goes out, then that is a huge loss for the Tigers. And Mercado's starting to build herself into this game. Should be mindful of that to try to target Hirschfeld, put her in those positions.
Well, and yeah, see, this is exactly what Nate Norman is arguing about, and you're absolutely right, Lori. I mean, you could clearly see the pull of the jersey. That would be a second yellow card, which is typically what you get for a pull of the jersey, but it's not called, and I imagine Marion's getting some good details down there listening in as well. She's actually listening right now at the moment, so we're going to give her a second just to hear whatever is being exchanged here between Catherine McCormick, our referee, and Nate Norman.
Well, the one thing that Nate Norman would know, Jen, is just how important Hirschfeld is to this Tigers team. And you're going to see the tug of the shirt here, and the pressure from Notre Dame starts it. There's the shirt pull. That is another yellow card, and that is what Nate Norman is arguing right now.
There is a yellow card, but it's going to go against the Notre Dame bench because even though...
So again, we have the referee who is well within her rights to play the advantage here. This is an okay decision, obviously a big one to make, but she makes this. She's able to make a play. But again, we understand the coach's frustration because this is the difference now between having 10 players on the field and also one of Clemson's better players out of the game. So of course, that would be the preferable outcome for the coach here, since they didn't score a goal. But notice that how the referee handles this. She goes over. We can't hear her yelling. The microphone is picking up the referee or the coach. Just one thing I want to point out: this hand on the coach. High school does not want us touching any of the players or coaches, so refrain from that. As an aside on this clip, I'm not sure it really gets gets the referee anything here that was helpful. But notice how the referee is in here. She is side to side. That is something that is very helpful. It diffuses the situation. She's calm. She does let him talk. She's got him calmed down, and she's shown him some respect about her willingness to explain her decision. However, this may go on a little bit too long in terms of how long the game gets stopped for it. But again, she's just saying, calm down. We're good. I got this. Which again, the coach might not be happy with, but she's given a reasonable explanation for what it is. She says, look, I understand why you're upset. She's kind of getting something back from doing this. So in any event, again, the head coach we're giving some tolerance to in a situation like this. However, as we see here, she is not giving that same sort of tolerance to the assistant coach, nor should she. The head coach has done it. The assistant coach doesn't need to be involved in this at all. This is one thing where we do want the one voice policy to apply. This is dissent. This isn't something where we're making friends or doing something else or getting information. The assistant coach here is not adding anything other than his dissent, which shouldn't be happening. So in any event, again, some good lessons learned here about how to handle this effectively and how to deal with that and keep things calm, be the one in control, and keep the game moving. Now we have the same game, same referees, same head coach. However, this time the head coach is being significantly louder and he's being public, personal, and provocative. Let's take a look at what happens here on the next slide. We're returning here to the Clemson-Notre Dame game, but now we are into about the 64th minute of the game. And this time we have a different situation on our hands. So we're going to take a look at this clip.
The ball carrier was actually out of control. She did not have control of the ball, and because that tackle was made, the yellow card was then given. She called both head coaches to her, explained that situation, and it was definitely agreed upon by both head coaches. No remorse there from Nate Norman.
Thank you, Marion. And yeah, job well done. When there's a penalty kick awarded and there's no argument from either coach, you got the right decision. Manu says the North Carolina native making the most. And now there is a foul, but Nate Norman is hot down there on the sideline. The Clemson bench also getting a talking to as Catherine McCormick makes her way over, and she does have the yellow card out of her pocket.
She doesn't. She goes in there, body to body. Catch up. No, the first one, she's really good. Everybody's here seeing it. You have changed the game. You have changed the game.
And a yellow card has been issued.
Well, you can see, you can hear his frustration. You can understand his frustration. That is boiling over from the first half. And the yellow card that was not called on Hal Hirschfeld.
So this is another good example here of it's always good to understand what the coaches are doing, what they're thinking. In this case, of course, as the commentators picked up on, he's frustrated. Now, we hear, of course, he is yelling about how she has changed the game.
Manu says the North Carolina native making the most.
Of course, this has also gotten to the point where it is personal, it is public, and it is provocative. This is directed at the referee. This is not necessarily, I should say, directed at the referee personally. This is not just directed at the jersey. He is specifically saying either you or she has changed the game, which is obviously she has big decisions she's made earlier, but that isn't something that it's appropriate here now for the coach to be bringing up. The coach also begins, when she starts coming over to him, the coach begins saying, hey, you didn't call this foul, and then he switches back, of course, to this earlier incident in the first half, which of course again was a big decision. Nonetheless, the referee has already spoken to this coach. This does not need to be another conversation given how public and provocative it is. Notice that as she comes over, the yellow card is already out here. This is not something that is going to be another conversation. This isn't a discussion. This is, Coach, I'm coming over. You are getting booked, and that's going to be the end of this story. She gives him a little bit of leeway, lets him talk just a touch, and then she basically is off. Gets back out of there. Again, he turns back here. This is not something we necessarily want to go back and invite more trouble. Again, we don't love this, but get in, get out. If there's some other little bit, again, you have to make a decision about how impactful that's going to be on the game. But again, decision has been made. This is very clear. It's personal. She's already given him a lot of flexibility. Now he's made it personal. She comes over, yellow card is out, and that is going to be the end of this story. Again, well handled here by the referee. Doesn't look like she's out of control. She's telling him, hey, be calm. We hear him, we don't hear her. It's another good indicator here, and boom, she's gone. Again, tips for how to deal with it. All of our games are a little bit different, but this is a good example of how to manage it after that ability to have the conversation with the head coach has disappeared. To recap that last clip, the referee had already had a polite conversation with this coach. The coach has been very public, personal, and provocative, shouting out, you've changed the game, or she has changed the game. Again, very vocal and very loud. The referee approaches with a yellow card out. This is not a discussion anymore. She's let everybody know this is going to be a booking. And while we can understand the coach's frustration here, it is not an excuse for this kind of behavior, and the referee must deal with it. In this next clip, we're going to look at a situation where the language was clearly inexcusable and intolerable, regardless of whatever had happened with the referee crews and the decisions.
Short delivery, header went down for it, cross back in, it's gone in the back of the net, the referee has waved it off, and McIntyre can't believe it.
Corner's taken, bounces off of two players.
No, it went out of play, rather.
Pitt coaching staff not happy about the call.
Referee's gone to the back pocket, and it is a red card. It's a red card for one of the assistants for Pitt. So after Jay Vidovich lost one of his players, he's lost one of his staff members as well.
So referee Coomer does not like what he hears coming out of clearly.
Now, in this clip, again, there are some things that have led up to this, but notice just in terms of how the referee has dealt with this. Again, they have the benefit of comms, but this was directed at the assistant referee. He's told him that the referee goes over, though. Again, red card's out. There's no discussion about about this. That's the kind of behavior that gets you sent immediately. Again, no discussion here. That's not the kind of thing that you're getting anything by engaging any further with them. This is a red card. You're gone. You can explain, obviously, to the head coach, this is what he said, this is why he's going, and that's that. But again, don't stick around to have a conversation about this. There's nothing good is going to happen from that conversation. Get in and get out. There's nothing left to be said. This is one where just let your red card do the talking for you. A few comments just to make about bench decorum here. Just keep in mind that a lot of our communication is nonverbal. We set the tone by how we show up, how we appear on the field, when we show up. And so remember, we want to keep our emotions low versus escalating as it goes through the match. We want to be calm and cool and collected as best we can, which can be very difficult sometimes when somebody's yelling at you. And again, finding that line of what's acceptable with yelling versus talking to you. But again, the cooler we stay, the cooler everybody else stays. And you would just want to be aware of what is happening in the game. What's the context? Is it hot? Is this a playoff game that is going to need a winner or a loser? Is it, are the emotions up? But the more we're aware of why coaches are doing what they're doing, why players are doing what they're doing, the easier it is for us to be successful in our communications with the players and the coaches. Having good conversations is really hugely helpful for us, and again, pays dividends down the road. Just remember that there's emotion within the game. That happens. Nobody wants to lose. Even we're competing when we get in there. We want to do a good job and do it. Don't match an unwelcome comment with your own unwelcome comment, and even if it sounds clever at the time, it's not worth it. And just one comment as well with respect to sort of emotion versus abuse is remember there's emotion in the game. People get hot. They might say something quickly and that's the end of it. But there's a difference between when they're saying that sort of at the jersey, directed at just this abstract concept of the referee versus abuse, which is really directed at you, at the referee personally. Again, we heard that in the Clemson clip with Notre Dame. Coach is clearly saying something to the referee personally. Certainly, we heard that with the assistant coach in the Pitt game, directing some profanities about how that particular referee was performing and what that particular referee was doing to the game. That's abuse, and that, of course, needs to be dealt with. We can tolerate some of the emotion as long as it's within reason, but again, there comes a point where we have to address it or it will not get better. As we head in there to the rest of our season, one sort of reminder is that when it comes to bench decorum, and we've seen this in the scenario we talked about here, but you do not need to go looking for the red cards. The red cards are going to find you. Again, be professional, do everything that you can to contain these emotional outbursts, things like that are happening on the field. The red cards will be obvious once they start to present themselves. Again, anytime you have an opportunity to make friends is often better. But when the business happens, take care of the business. Make sure that we are not sending a message that kind of behavior is okay. It's especially not true in high school that we're going to allow that sort of thing. We need to make sure that we address it and support each other out there. But there's no need to overdo it. Again, that friendly behavior could be important 20 minutes later in the game. It could be important 2 years later when you're seeing that same coach. And I think at the end of the day, we all go home feeling better when that's it. But when the behavior warrants it, there's no reason not to resort to your cards when the time comes. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to have fun out there. We want the players to have fun. We want to be safe. We want the players to be safe. We want the coaches to be safe. We want to make the game fun and have it be an educational opportunity for these student athletes. Thanks very much for listening to this presentation. We're happy to have an opportunity to do it. We plan to keep doing it. If you have any thoughts or ideas, certainly feel free to reach out about topics that maybe we can cover. Have fun and stay safe.